Good evening. Well, as by-elections go, they don't get any more significant than today's in the constituency of Makerfield in northwest England. We're here with instant reaction now that the polls have just closed to voting that has a huge bearing on who will be Prime Minister. Will Andy Burnham get his ticket back to Parliament where he can take on Sir Keir Starmer for the leadership of the Labour Party, or will Reform seize the seat? Well, today, voters in 3 constituencies have been selecting a new MP, 2 in Scotland, in Aberdeen South and Arbroath and Broughty Ferry, as well as that significant by-election, of course, in Makerfield. We'll hear from Louise in Aberdeen in just a moment, but first to Harry at the Count in Wigan, where votes should start arriving any moment. Harry.
Yeah, that's right. The campaigning in this by-election has ended, and in a few minutes' time, the voting here in Wigan will begin. This has been a by-election like no other. For the past 5 weeks, the people in the towns and villages that make up the Makerfield constituency have been bombarded with thousands of activists, MPs, journalists, all visiting over the past 5 weeks. And when this by-election was called, it was with the sole aim of trying to get Andy Burnham back to Parliament so that he can try and challenge Keir Starmer to become Prime Minister. And in a few hours' time, we will learn whether Andy Burnham has taken a huge step towards meeting that goal.
Is this Burnham's moment? The Greater Manchester Mayor plots a route to Downing Street.
He's been planning this moment for years.
I will take that fight as high as I can take that fight.
A path back to Westminster.
A vote for me in this by-election campaign is a vote to change Labour.
That he hopes can take him all the way to the top. In Ashton in Makerfield today, MPs, party activists, even a former speaker, and awkwardly perhaps, cabinet ministers, all here to try and help the Greater Manchester Mayor win this by-election.
So look, we had a devastating local elections back in May, and this is why we need to do this. It's about sending that Labour message back out into communities like this so that they can trust us again. And I think this is what that campaign is all about.
You feeling confident?
I am, of course I am.
This is the social club from where Labour's campaign is being run. The party says there are more than 1,000 activists in the constituency today trying to get Andy Burnham over the line.
Trying to stop him is Reform UK and their candidate Robert Kenyon. The local councillor and plumber has had a bumpy campaign dogged by historic social media posts. And to the right of Reform, Restore Britain, a new party hoping to perform well here and perhaps split the vote.
So, how did you vote?
Andy Burnham. And that goes kind of against the grain because he's been my MP before and I'm not a fan, but I don't want reform.
And are you voting for Andy to be your MP or to be Prime Minister?
I'm voting him to be my MP, and if he becomes Prime Minister, all the better.
Who did you vote for and why?
Reform. I don't really like Andy Burnham.
After so much attention in recent weeks, some here are just happy this by-election is finally over.
The other day, and I think someone must have knocked on the door like 6 times. There's constant leaflets and all sorts through the door. So yeah, we'll be glad when it's done.
I'm glad to see no placards up in the street, and they can all come down and we can all get onto that, back to normal, or whatever normal's going to be.
The campaign for a new MP is over. The campaign for a new Prime Minister may be about to begin. Harry Horton, News at 10, Makerfield.
Well, with counting soon getting underway, we won't know for a good few hours, of course, the result of this Makerfield by-election. Here is, though, a reminder of how recent election results there have gone, or how they may or perhaps may not give us a clue of what to expect this time round. Well, in the 2024 general election, Labour held the seat, securing a majority of almost 5,400 over Reform, with a 45% vote share. Fast forward, though, to last month's local elections, and what a different story it was. In the 8 council wards, which make up the majority of the constituency, Reform received by far the most votes, almost 50% in fact. Labour were some way back on 26 0.9%. The Green Party in third on just over 10%. But according to 4 opinion polls over the last few weeks, the local election results are not expected to be repeated. They've predicted on average that Labour candidate Andy Burnham will receive almost 46% of the vote. Reform further back on 40%. Their performance in the polls affected by Restore, who the opinion polls suggest will get around 7.5% of the vote. Well, let's go back now to Harry at the count in Wigan tonight. And you spent an awful lot of your time in these past weeks in Makerfield. Harry, what are you hearing from the various parties tonight as the counting begins to get underway?
Well, look, having travelled around the constituency today, we have seen thousands of activists from the Labour Party, from the Reform Party, but also lots of activists from Restore Britain, this new party to the right of Reform UK. I've never seen a presence like it in a by-election. And for what it's worth, in recent by-elections that I've covered, we've struggled to find Labour voters at times. Today, we didn't struggle to find Labour voters. There were lots of people we spoke to outside polling stations who said they were going to vote for Andy Burnham in this by-election. And the Labour Party says that it has knocked on every door in the constituency today, at least 4 times. And we are expecting quite a high turnout in this by-election. But as I say, Reform have had a huge presence here today. They think they've done a good job of turning out their votes. And there's that unknown factor in Restore Britain to the right of Reform UK and what they can achieve in this by-election. Now, in the recent local elections here, Reform absolutely stormed the board, winning 24 out of 25 seats. So this is a real tall order for Andy Burnham to be victorious here. Labour tell me today they're feeling a little bit nervous. They think this could be a little bit closer than perhaps they expected, but they're still fairly confident that Andy Burnham will get over the line today. And the other big test for Andy Burnham is not just whether he wins this by-election, but how big his victory is. The margin of victory will be a crucial factor if he does win, about how soon and how effectively he can challenge the current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer.
You've got quite a night ahead there. Thank you very much indeed, Harry, for all of that. Well, as we mentioned, it is not just the people of Makerfield voting for a new MP today. In Scotland, in the constituencies of Arbroath and Broughty Ferry and Aberdeen South, by-elections are taking place after their MPs, both SNP, won seats at Holyrood in the recent elections to the Scottish Parliament. Well, Louise Scott is at the count in Aberdeen. And what are we expecting to happen there tonight, Louise?
Well, this is where the Aberdeen South vote is being counted. We're expecting boxes to start arriving in the next hour and a declaration well into the early hours. We've been spending some time in this area and speaking to voters. Aberdeen is the energy capital of Europe, but an estimated 1,000 jobs is being lost in the oil and gas industry each month, partly due to the uncertainty around granting of new drilling licences. And we spoke to some workers who'd just come back from offshore, who'd just been told that their rig was going to be shutting down and they'd be losing their jobs within the next few years. So there's a lot of concern in this constituency about what the future holds. Now, this is the former seat of the SNP's Stephen Flynn, a prominent member of the SNP party. He's now in Holyrood. However, the Conservatives previously held the seat in 2017 and they have their eyes on it. They have put a lot into campaigning here. The UK leader, Kemi Badenoch, has been up here several times and, well, they've been really campaigning on the oil and gas industry about granting new licences and really supporting the area. Party sources I've been speaking to, well, they're feeling pretty confident that they could actually tip the edge here. They've been hearing a lot of anger on the doorsteps that nothing has been done, that people are losing their jobs and it's really affecting the area. Now, in the Scottish elections, the Conservatives lost to the SNP by just over 1,000 votes. Reform, they took 6,000. So that is a variable here. What could Reform do to the Conservative vote and how will that overall affect? Another variable is, of course, political fatigue, which we're hearing a lot about here. What will the turnout be and how will that impact on the results?
OK, thank you very much indeed for all of that, Louise. Well, let's talk about all of the by-elections, of course, as we've dwelt on in this programme this evening. But the big focus from Westminster perspective, of course, will be Makerfield. I mean, the world's media is gathering there tonight, and Robert is here to give us his take. I mean, first of all, on what you're hearing there and hearing on Andy Burnham's prospects.
So, everybody I've spoken to expects Burnham to win. As Harry said, there is uncertainty about the margin of victory. So one very striking thing is that the people of Makerfield understand the importance of this. I have said repeatedly, this is probably the most important by-election of our lives. And as a result of that, the turnout is high, right? So in the general election in Makerfield, the turnout was significantly lower than the national average. It was about 50%. National average in the general election was about 60%. Actually, I'm hearing that the turnout in this by-election is over 60%, which for a by-election is extremely high. Now, that almost certainly means, I mean, Restore, we did a focus group, ITV, just a few days ago, and we were struck by the impact that Restore Britain, run by Rupert Lowe, the kind of impact they were having. And they are apparently appealing to people who don't usually vote. I mean, he's made a big thing of how successive governments, in his view, it's some would say a very sensational charge that, successive governments, Tory and Labour, didn't deal properly with what he describes as the Pakistani rape gangs. And that it's received an enormous amount of attention, and therefore the vote will be up significantly. But nonetheless,
sorry to interrupt your flow there, Robert, but we should just remark there the first votes coming in. It's obviously one of those moments that people will be watching so many of those boxes rolling in tonight, but it is a significant sort of image, isn't it? Sorry.
It is certainly right. Now, where do we go from here? Every Labour MP and minister I talk to says that Keir Starmer's time is up. I genuinely, obviously there are a few loyalists around him who disagree with that, but that is not the consensus in the Labour Party. And so the question is, if Burnham wins, and we do expect him to win, how quickly do we see a handover of power, and how complicated and messy will that be?
And as Harry raised, just as he was concluding his thoughts from Wigan just now, where is the margin on that? Has he got to win really big?
No.
I mean,
no. He just has to win.
He just has to win.
Look, if you think about how far behind Labour were only a few weeks ago in those local elections, where they were trounced in all but one of the council wards in this area, I mean, way behind. This was a reform seat. The fact that Burnham looks as though he has won will be enough for, the so-called selectorate, Labour MPs. They don't in the end choose the leader, that is the members, but nonetheless, Labour MPs and ministers have decided that Starmer's time is up. And therefore, what's going to happen, as I understand it, is that Burnham will give the Prime Minister the weekend to, in a sense, see the truth of things. Then it is very likely that some members of the Cabinet, if the Prime Minister is still saying what he said over the last few days to people like me, which is he isn't going to stand down and hand power over in an orderly way. If Andy Burnham wants to be leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister, there's going to have to be a contest, right? Now, Andy Burnham doesn't want a contest. Almost no Labour MP or minister I talk to wants a contest, because that would be weeks of uncertainty and chaos of a sort we saw with the previous Tory government, and they don't want...
Of the sort that they pledged, time and again in the last election not to do.
So they are hoping that the Prime Minister, in a sense, faces up to reality and then announces that there'll be an orderly handover, maybe not immediately, maybe it will be at the time of Labour's conference, but a date will be set for the transfer of power. Now, I have to say, I think Andy Burnham is being naive about this. I did speak to the Prime Minister about it, and I think he means what he says, that he will fight it, and therefore I think we are in for an extraordinary week or so. I think there'll be pressure.
So he will dig in your view?
Yeah, I think he will. I
think
he will dig in. I think, he's already said if members of the government want to support another candidate like Burnham, they're going to have to resign. I don't think that's sustainable, because I think quite a lot of, particularly junior ministers, will go to the Prime Minister and say, we want to nominate Andy Burnham, or we want to nominate Wes Streeting. He's then got, does he want to get himself into the kind of chaos that Boris Johnson found himself in, with vast numbers of his government just resigning? That's a pretty scary prospect for him, or being forced to resign, as it were. So, it could get incredibly messy, but where things stand at the moment, I think there is a significant probability that we will see yet another chaotic leadership contest. I think it's almost impossible that Keir Starmer would win that contest. And I think it is very, very likely, given both the weight of opinion as polled among Labour members and indeed in the government, that we will eventually see Andy Burnham, if he wins tonight, as Prime Minister. The question, the open question, is does it happen in a fairly speedy, orderly way or in a totally chaotic way?
Let's see. Robert, thank you very much indeed, as ever, for that. And that is it for now. Thanks for being with us.